Lily.
I'm Dr. Ashley, and we are both psychologists.
Welcome to our third episode of Do You Ever Feel? This is a podcast where we talk about common experiences and dilemmas that people face in everyday life. We think about some of the psychology behind that and then provide strategies and advice on things that you can put into place straight away. So this third episode, we'll be talking about, do you ever feel worried about the future? Thinking about uncertainty. So Ashley, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, of course. So I think it's important that uncertainty, that's something that we all deal with. You know, nobody knows what the future holds. And as humans, we like to have everything in order. We like to know the structure, the routine, and what's going to happen next. And so the future can be quite a scary place because there's lots of things that we don't know how they're going to turn out. And what some people do is they find themselves that they spend a lot of their time worrying about events that are going to happen in the future. So it might be some things like, like maybe they're worried about how our relationship's going to turn out, how our job's going to turn out, or it might be even like, kind of wider issues as like maybe things as like losing a loved one, global pandemics, things like that. So it can be very like personalised, or it can be a kind of wider thing that they worry about. But really, what it is if it is very excessive, it can be a symptom of anxiety. It is normal for us to worry about occasional things that come up and things like that because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if you are experiencing where it's taken over your life, it's interfering with your daily routines and things like that, that might be a sign that maybe perhaps you need to get some extra help or look at different strategies and things like that to try. So in terms of anxiety is it's a feeling of having fear or unease and things like that, and it's like maybe feeling that you can't stop thinking about things, you can't stop worrying about things, and in this case worrying about the future. And what a lot of people who experience this, what they tend to do is they catastrophize. And what this simply means is they just imagine the worst possible outcome that could happen. And they almost treat this as if this is true, like it's definite, it's going to happen, but they don't actually have evidence to suggest that it would, but they do jump to the worst possible outcome, whatever that may be. And what I would say is, like I said, obviously experiencing the occasional worry about the future is normal. We all do that. But if it's really negatively affecting your day-to-day life, then that's when you might realise that this is maybe more of an issue that you have to work with. And the kind of symptoms that you might experience to suggest that it is a problem that you have to address is maybe that you can't focus. Maybe you can't focus at work because you're worried about the future, you're worried about whatever that might be for you. You might find it difficult to manage your emotions and your moods. Some people as well, they experience feelings of nausea, feeling sick, and a lot of people lose their appetite. So that might be some little things that just to keep an eye on. If you're noticing that, I'm not eating as much as what I used to, or something like that, or maybe I'm feeling a bit more sick and things. It might be because you've got experiences of anxiety. And then also as well, people can experience sleep problems as well. That maybe they're struggling to get to sleep, or up multiple times throughout the night and stuff like that. So. Yeah, but I think it's a tricky one because as humans we like to predict the future, we like to know what's coming up next. But sometimes when we are worrying about the future, it kind of puts us in a really helpless state. Yeah. Because a lot of the things we tend to worry about are things that we actually can't control.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there was actually a recent study that was published in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders where they looked at this exact thing, where they asked a group of people, what are your most common worries? And they found that people's common worries about the future were financial worries, which is a common one globally, and also worries about job security, also linked to finances as well, and worries about aging and health problems, and also worrying about how to maintain their overall well-being in the future. They found that quite a lot of participants had said that there were interpersonal worries they had about the future. So a common one was anxiety about finding a future life partner, and anxiety about like maintaining the friendships that they have, people leaving or people moving away, and people had a lot of worries about the future around social isolation and feelings of loneliness. And then there was a group of people that also had worries about societal and global issues, thinking about things like stability of governments, and also global warming and topics like that. So we know there's such a broad range of things that people can experience worry about for the future, and it very much depends on individual circumstances and what's going on in people's lives. But one of the common themes that runs through this is the theme of uncertainty, which you picked up on. And I think one of the reasons for that is because as humans we have a disposition to want to feel a sense of predictability. And our brain seeks that because that helps us to feel safe and secure.
Absolutely.
So with that, we know that it's something that there could be a broad range of worries that people have. What about how common it is?
So there was a study by Reach Out, which is an Australian mental health organisation, and what they did a study last year, and it was all about worrying about the future and anxieties about the future and things like that. And what they actually found was 55% of young people who they'd surveyed had responded that worrying about their future either moderately or severely impacted on their well-being. So that shows you that's a huge percentage, like more than half of people are experiencing this. And they actually found that the kind of average range for worries about the future to kind of start is between the ages of like 14 and 16. And it might be because they're at that age group, so they've got things coming up, they've got exams and leaving school and having to think about the future career and things like that. So it's interesting that it starts so young, 14 to 16, that tends to be when it starts. But what the interesting thing I found was 13% of the participants actually reported that it significantly had an impact on their general well-being, and it was like interfering with their kind of day-to-day life.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like that it's experienced by so many people, wide-ranging, and it's interesting that, as you say, it starts from a young age, when people are entering early adulthood and teenagers, and I guess that early age is when they're going to enter into that period of uncertainty as well, because
absolutely.
People are in the school system usually for that, and
you've got that predictability.
Exactly. Interestingly, there's a theory, a concept in psychology known as the negativity bias, and I think this very much links to what we're talking about when we're thinking about worrying about the future and anxiety, because what the negativity bias suggests is that our brain and our overall functioning is more impacted by negative experiences, or what they would term like negative emotions, which means emotions that feel more vulnerable, like sadness, anger, anxiety, those types of emotions, that we feel them more deeply, and then we recognise positive events or more positive emotions such as happiness and joy. And what the research around negativity bias suggests is that when there's a negative event, we just tend to fixate on it. So an example would be, and I'm sure like there's so many examples that we could think about and refer to, but just one example is if we're at work and somebody gives us 2 compliments and 1 criticism, what are we going to focus on?
Yeah, the criticism straight away. Yeah.
Yeah,
You almost like disregard the compliments.
Yes. And that's sort of what we're naturally dispositioned to do, is focus on those negative events, negative feedback. And you know, I can think of so many examples from you know, personal experience where you really do. Somebody can give you the nicest feedback and compliments, and you just fixate on that one thing that you've got to develop or work on, and then. And that becomes part and parcel of our human experience when we look at, you know, there's been lots of research on sort of the balance of positive and negative news in the media, but we're quite drawn to negative events and we want to know more about them. So with these situations, it's always important to be mindful that we're drawn to negative events and we can experience them more deeply. But what we can do about that is really focus on some aspects of psychology that we know more about now than we used to. So there is a new growing area of psychology known as positive psychology. And what psychologists had done previously is so much research on the things that we're talking about anxiety and human suffering in general, and you know, when people are struggling, what does that look like? And psychology research has so much information about that, but it was almost like the research around how positive emotions impact us was just neglected and just not looked at. And so that all changed when a lady called Barbara Fredrickson and her team did some research to find out, okay, we know about the negativity bias, we know about how these more raw, vulnerable emotions impacts our mental health and well-being, but what do we know about those more positive emotions like joy and happiness and excitement, and what do we know about how they impact our well-being and how frequently are we experiencing them? Those were important questions that we needed to understand more about, and what they found some quite interesting things. So what they suggested is that for human flourishing to experience optimal well-being, if you will, we need a ratio of 3 positive experiences for every negative experience, and that's because we have to balance it, you know, because the negative experiences impact us more profoundly. And when they looked into it, they found that the research they did suggested that most people are operating at a ratio of 2 positive emotions or experience to every difficult or negative event. And so what we know is that that's not necessarily the most, I guess what they found is that isn't what we understand to be optimal well-being. So there's more that we can do to try and increase our positive experiences. And so with that, what they came up with a theory called the broaden and build theory, and suggested 2 things. And I think this very much leads on to our strategies and what we can do to support some of those worries about the future that we have. Just knowing that we have a negativity bias, and being consciously aware of when we are experiencing positive emotions, because they found that they're more subtle and fleeting. And I know when I reflected on this myself, I found the same thing. I wasn't as aware when I was experiencing some of those moments. It's like when you see a beautiful sunrise or a sunset, or you don't experience those emotions so intensely. So one of the things that we can do to try and support our well-being when we're experiencing higher levels of anxiety is become more aware of the positive emotions when we're experiencing them. So really try and be in the moment with those, and build them. That's part of the broaden and build theory. And one way that we can build them is by using gratitude.
Yeah.
And this is a really common technique that psychologists
and powerful
recommend.
as well, very, very powerful. There's so much research that suggests it has a significant impact on people's like mental health and well-being.
Yeah. Absolutely, because we're just drawing our mind to those things that we really appreciate and we're grateful for, and the things that are going well in our life. So it's like just thinking of 3 things that you are grateful for when you wake up, or even at the end of the day before you go to bed. Some people suggest that, you know, it can help with relaxing the mind before going to sleep. Think about what's went well today, you know, some of those things where...
What a lovely way to end your day as well, like just actually like almost like recapping on exactly what's happened that day, and just, I mean, you're just about to like drift off, and I really like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to feel more relaxed if, you know, those are the types of thoughts you're having before you go off to sleep. So that's one thing, one strategy that we would suggest when worrying about the future, is to try and just put some very simple, short questioning of gratitude practices into your daily life. Another thing that is really helpful is setting goals. So when we're thinking about setting goals, even breaking them down into smaller goals, but what that does is it gives us a sense of control.
Right? That's interesting, because especially if you're worried about the future, it's because you tend to not be in control, so that's good that you're able to regain some of that control.
Exactly. So when you're in that place where you feel really uncertain and you need to regain that control, just setting those small, simple goals will help you feel like, okay, I'm in control and I have a sense of optimism now about the future, because you've got something to look forward to, you know. So this is a way of just thinking about, right, okay, how can we change some of the narrative about what I'm experiencing, what's going on, and what goals can we set so that I have that sense of control and optimism. And then another thing is thinking about what we're consuming, and what I mean by that, what our mind's consuming, because we can be exposed to so much quite distressing information in the media, on the news, and it can, for many people, it can become quite addictive to follow certain stories. And of course we need to stay updated on current events and what's going on in the world, but having a balance with that, and this is the thing, is not making it all consuming, where the majority of things we're doing is watching things that are upsetting and can be quite sometimes disturbing for us, making sure that we're taking time to really come away from that, and just being mindful of those things, I think, is important, because you can feel, if you become more consciously aware, you can feel when your mood's starting to decline, when you're watching a certain thing, reading a certain thing, or having a certain conversation. So it's being aware of triggers. So there might be people that you spend time with where you know, a topic of conversation crops up that makes you feel really triggered, and then you can go into a spiral. So when we recognize where some of those triggers are, we can then begin to remove ourselves from some of those situations where we're able to.
Meditations, you can find so many online. There's lots of free apps, there's websites like YouTube, you can get free meditations. And basically what happens is you just play the video or the audio and just listen to the words that they're saying. So sometimes they might ask you to lie down in your bed or on the sofa, or sit up and then in a comfortable position. And they just like kind of take you through this process, and it's all about like relaxation. They'll do the deep breathing and things like that, and it's all about just trying to focus your mind on the present moment and just being aware of your body, its positioning, and your breathing and things like that. So it's such a helpful tool. And these meditations, they can be as long or as short as you want them to be.
That's good, because then you can fit it into your day easily.
Absolutely. So maybe you've got 2 minutes and it's a 2-minute meditation, but do you know what, maybe that 2 minutes is just what you need just to get a bit of perspective and just like bring you in the present moment. Or you might have more time, like I quite like doing like meditations like before bed. Like I feel like they're really just so relaxing, and it just like helps you just drift off into a really nice nice sleep. And it's just like so nice, just like be away from your phone, away from TikTok, you know, just sort of, obviously you've got it playing, but you're just like listening and you're just relaxing, just helps you like switch off. And some people will say that what they'll do is they'll do it on a daily basis. Lots of people say that, oh, like they do meditation daily. And that can be helpful, but I'm not saying that that's what you have to do. Like whatever works for you is the best solution, really. So you might be one of those people that's like that. You only listen to meditations when you are in a state of distress or anxiety. You've got your anxieties about the future or whatever. Yeah, I was just saying, make it work for you. I know there'll be different, obviously different channels, different. You know, people that do the guided meditations, there'll be ones that you connect with more than others, you know, so I think it's important to give it a try and, you know, be patient with it until you find the one that works for you. But it's just so good to bring in the present moment, and that's a really good way of doing that. Another one that you can do, because we don't always have the luxury of being able to listen to an audio, you know, there might be like things like maybe we're at work or, you know, we're out walking down the street or whatever it might be. And so what you can apply in this situation is what we call grounding techniques. And what they basically mean is like to help you get grounded in the present moment. So it just brings your focus and your attention in the present moment. So it might be something as simple as like you could count the number of objects. So you might, like if you're in maybe a meeting room or something, you might want to count how many windows there are or how many, and it just makes you be aware of your surroundings and what's around you. And you could also do a simple one is look to see how many blue things you can see in the room, you know, and it's funny because obviously you don't pay attention to this information, but as soon as you ask yourself that question, you're really focused, like, okay, that's blue, and things like just like really helps you focus. And then obviously you can do breathing techniques, they help fantastically as well, with just grounding you in the present moment. So a really simple one you can do is breathe in to the count of 4, hold your breath for 4, and then breathe out to the count of 4, and just repeat that over and over. So yeah, it's all about being in the present moment. And then the other things you can try as well is talking with a friend. So that can be really, really helpful, because you might actually realise that when you're talking to your friends that they have similar worries or concerns. So you can share your experiences and like bond over that, and then also they might actually say, oh, do you know what, this actually helps me, or this is something that I do to control the worries that I have about the future. But I am aware that not everyone likes talking to other people about their feelings and their worries and insecurities, anxieties. So another helpful thing to do is journal your ideas, the thoughts that you might have. Because what this just basically does is it helps you like get all the thoughts that are kind of, you know, swirling around in your head, get them onto paper or on your phone, whatever's easy for you. And it just helps you to process and kind of come to terms with the thoughts. And it helps you notice your thoughts. That's another thing in like mindfulness meditation. The idea is not to completely clear your mind. It's just like what they do is just like if thoughts come and go, just notice them. It doesn't mean you have to go along with that thought, but like it's just being noticing and aware. So there's just some strategies that people could apply to help them with worries about the future.
There's some really nice strategies there that people can fit into their daily routine very easily. So, you know, even when you're if you go into the gym, if you're out shopping, then you can literally listen to some of these things, and as you say, like bedtime routines, these things can be really helpful. What we know is that gratitude, mindfulness, these types of strategies have a great evidence base in helping our body to feel calm and relaxed, and sometimes it is about catching that anxiety in the moment and then applying some of these. We know that there's never a one size fits all, which is why we share our own strategies, and we try and give different perspectives and things to try, so you could use something that works for you, because we all like to use things that fit with what makes us feel calm and relaxed in moments of stress and anxiety. So with those things in mind, it's important to remember that, as we've touched upon, worrying about the future, having anxiety, things like negativity bias, is all very common and part and parcel of our human experience. But if you're finding that this anxiety is becoming unmanageable, it's becoming really disruptive to your daily routine, and having an impact on your life and social relationships and work related things, then that would be a point where you would reach out to a mental health professional who can provide you with detailed strategies and advice specific to you, and develop a support plan for the things that you're experiencing.